Here are the 5 things that you need to know when it comes to setting up MIG welding. I'm here with my buddy Jeff with MechMaster.
Hey.
Thanks for having us, Jeff. We're in Jeff's space here. This is his garage. He's got this very nice setup to teach all about welding. And today we're gonna jump right into the first thing that you need to know with MIG welding.
The first thing that you're gonna need for MIG welding is obviously the correct wire.
Okay.
Can't go with the shiny looking stuff, flux core wire. This won't work, well, kind of will work, but it'd be a waste because this stuff's a lot more expensive. So get the cheap stuff that's actually made for MIG welding.
So this is solid, no flux core, nothing in the middle, solid wire. Okay.
Solid wire.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Diving into the actual wire itself, just like with other stuff, you got different sizes. You can go thinner if you're going to be sticking with kind of the advantage of MIG welding, doing thinner material. So they have, you know, 0.023 is a common size for the lower end. This is 0.03. I actually like that the best. That one's actually the smaller one, yeah. And then 0.035 is kind of a bigger end of wire that they sell as well.
So does that correlate with the material thickness or not really?
Yeah, it does, but there's a lot of overlap.
Okay.
And that's why typically I'll go with
an 03 because it's a little more universal?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
And with different wire, your machine will come up with different tips, contacts tips. There's a little engraving of the size itself. Just match that with your wire, you're good.
One thing we ought to cover for noobs like myself, I'm guessing the IG stands for inert gas.
Oh yeah, you
MIG.
actually
I don't even
MIG.
know what MIG stands for. What's that?
Yeah, metal inert gas.
Metal inert gas.
Yep,
Okay.
that's right.
And the concept is, unlike with flux core, where the flux in the middle is doing the, I don't know if shielding is the right word, but
that's exactly right.
Then with this, we actually have gas hooked up, and it's, which I'm guessing we're going to get into, but that's actually creating a little shield around this, right, around the wire.
Yep.
Okay.
To go along with the size of wire, you need to make sure your roller, this is what's actually driving the wire through, is the correct size. But more importantly, lots of machines coming out come with multiple different types of wheels or rollers. Now, we'll try to zoom in on here, but you may or may not be able to see, this is what's called a knurled wheel. Yeah, so it has a bunch of little teeth, grooves. Okay. That is for flux core.
Oh, okay.
And that's because flux core, it is in a sense a hollow wire and the flux is in it. And so those teeth kind of grab onto that wire and pull it through. Solid core, you use a V groove. That's what's already in there. So you don't need the teeth. Just use that roller, you're set.
You're seeing on your wheel that you do have the knurled grooves in here. Then you want to make sure that you swap that out when you're doing MIG for the V groove one. Okay, good to know.
Next thing, first setup would be your polarity. Now I don't want to dive too much in here because polarity can be very confusing on what the heck that even is for the machine. Flux core uses what would be called a DCEN, a direct current electrode negative.
I was totally gonna say that, yeah.
You probably had it right on the tip of your tongue. So that would mean that your MIG gun, your torch, this guy is actually gonna be hooked up to the negative terminal. Okay. Or since we have DC output, direct current, what's Tesla, thank you.
Who's the father of DC?
DC was,
now you're on the spot here.
I know. There was a whole video, a whole movie about it.
It wasn't like Edison.
It was Edison, but he wasn't the father of it. Okay. He was, whether you care about Edison, he was a great businessman.
Right, DC.
DC type welding, so direct current. So you will have the ability to change what is negative and what's positive, either your earth or ground clamp or the MIG torch. So flux core, DCEN, that MIG torch is hooked up to the negative terminal. MIG, DCEP, electropositive. You just flip them. It makes a huge difference. It's really crazy. You wouldn't think it would make that big of a difference in the weld. There are numerous times where I was previously flux core welding. I just switched out the wire and I'm going along and I'm like, this is horrible. Like, am I missing my gas? What's going on? Oh, it's the polarity. Switch it over, you got great welds.
And that's typically, if I'm not mistaken, on the back or on the inside, right, of the welder is where you switch that, or is that something else?
It is for this machine.
Okay.
Yeah, this machine has a little lug that you just flip it over. Some machines have the connections in the front. Okay. Every machine would be set up a little differently.
Gotcha. So you gotta check that on your specific machine. And just for a little background here, this is the machine that I brought over here to Jeff's because this is something I got on Kickstarter. It's a 5-in-1, and I was like, all right, I don't know any of these. I barely know flux core at all, but I'll use this so I can learn more. And I'm sure it's not the best of each of these, but it'll allow me to kind of get my feet wet on each type of welding.
Yep.
So
it's perfect. Yes, Welder is newer in the game, but they're actually kind of making a little name for themselves on great intro type welders.
Sweet.
Now, as mentioned before, metal inert gas. What the heck is that all about? Let's grab this little cute guy right here.
All right, little baby bottle.
Yeah. So the two main ones you'll only care about right now are 100% CO2 or a mixed gas. Of course, there's a whole bunch of variations. You don't need to get bogged down in that. Some guys will say, you know, 70-80 or 70-30 is better. Don't bog yourself down. Just know you need to add a MIG welding type gas, pick up a steel bottle, C25, or an aluminum bottle of 100% CO2.
All right, so the aluminum gas or aluminum tank with CO2 versus one of these other tanks, for example, what do any of these cost? Yeah, tell me all about that.
Yeah, as you can imagine, there's a huge price range from that small little guy, probably, you know, 100, 150 bucks, all the way up. This one right here is a 125. That's gonna run, you know, 300-400 bucks, obviously depending on where you are, steel prices. But the great thing is, once you make that initial investment of the bottle, you can just go and exchange it for just the gas. So you take in your empty bottle, say, hey, like to exchange it, all you're paying for is the gas, which, just like your propane. Important part, MIG welding, 100% CO2 or a C25 mix.
Okay, meaning 25% CO2, 75%
argon.
Argon, okay, gotcha.
Your inert gases from chemistry days.
I totally don't remember any of that, but I did take chemistry, so. Okay.
Yeah. The last really thing is pretty simple. We'll get into the actual setup of the wire and the setup of the gas in a second, hooking it up. But if you've flux core welded or seen any of my videos or Neil's last one on flux core welding, what did I tell you to do about this nozzle?
Toss it.
Toss it, don't do that. Because we are MIG welding now. So before I told you, yeah, use one of these flux core caps, nozzle, and you're golden. But we now have gas going through this line and coming out through these holes right here. So we need that gas coverage. This is a MIG nozzle.
Okay.
It's exactly what it says. It's a nozzle. It directs your gas over the weld, protects it, and kind of a must-have when you're MIG welding.
Makes sense. So we've got our safety gear out. Let's go ahead and get the welder set up so that we can try some MIG welding. I've literally never MIG welded in my life. Shall we go for it?
Sweet, let's test it out.
Okay.
For that setup process, hooking up the line from the gas tank to the welder is pretty simple. They all come with hoses like that. You will need a gas regulator. Just search online or go to a welding supply shop. Any regulator that is capable of doing CO2 or argon mixed will work just fine. Simply hook that up and you'll want to adjust the flow rate to about 15 to 20 CFH.
And that's while you're squeezing the trigger, this is when you're gonna see that gas flowing and then you have that ball moving in the valve there, okay.
Yep. Now the settings, we're actually gonna just let the machine pick the settings itself. This is kind of a synergetic type mode. You can adjust the voltage or the amperage or wire speed accordingly, but we'll go with what the machine has picked for now and see how it turns out.
And then we've got our V-groove wheel in here. We've got this set to the same 0.03, which matches the gauge of the wire that we're feeding through here. We've adjusted the tension on the wheel itself, so we should be good there. We've got the switcher, I don't know what you call this thing, over to the positive side.
Yeah, your polarity bar.
Okay, because this is gas, we've got it switched over to the positive. And like Jeff said earlier, this is gonna vary based on your particular welder, but in mine, that's what it needs. And then on the front, we've got it switched to the ground clamp is in the negative port, and that's what it calls for MIG welding on this welder as well.
Yep, DCEP.
DCE positive, that's right.
Yep.
We've got to have that
Electro-positive.
Positive on the gun, negative on the clamp.
Yep.
Okay, got it. With that, I think we've got everything we need to start welding. So let's give this a go. So that's kind of fun. That looks okay. I know that's not great, but like for my first weld with MIG, that was pretty easy.
Yeah, first weld, I would almost say you kind of had those like little kickbacks. I think that was more the machine.
Okay.
I don't think that was you at all. Now, I actually said at first that we went off of the suggested settings, but the amperage was actually set a little higher.
Okay.
So I kind of went back to the 0, see how this goes.
Oh, okay. This is straight up default now.
Yeah, this is default for what it says 10 gauge.
Okay. Yeah, it's doing this thing where it's traveling up the wire.
Yeah. One thing I noticed, your stick out was super long.
Long, okay.
Try just
Getting closer.
Just sticking it in closer before we adjust the settings again.
All right, let me try that. That was better.
Okay, yeah, that was better. But let's turn that up just another crank. Now let's dial in the settings and try to get those.
All right.
Yeah, that even got a little better, like it was more consistent.
Yep.
I still want to crank it up just a little bit more.
Jeff, I don't know if this is anything at all, but I noticed every 3/16 or 1/4 inch, there's these little brown lines.
Yep.
Is that just due to my speed?
No, the brown lines is nothing. That's just a gas. I just turned it up a little bit. Okay. So I think we're at 135 amps.
Okay. Felt even better.
Even better, and there was a time right here in the middle where you were pulling up a little further.
I noticed something was going wrong. So
and then you kind of actually went back down.
Okay, stick out was too far in the middle a little bit. I mean, again, I'm totally no expert at this, but that weld seems like that looks a lot more consistent and like a better thickness than any of the ones so far.
Yeah.
So as we're adjusting from left to right, left is the first weld with MIG, and then right is the most recent. We're gonna keep adjusting, but it's kind of fun to see the progress here. Now on this one, I can just rest it on the nozzle tip, right?
Yep.
And get my 1/2 inch.
There you go.
Okay. I noticed I was starting to move up again.
Yeah, I'm even gonna turn it up one more crank.
There's that last one, and now we'll try yet another. All right, I did something weird there.
Okay, like that end of the weld was like perfect heat, but you can tell it was kind of like,
yeah, it was traveling
back on you.
Interesting how that feels easier than Flux core for some reason. The weld itself looks better than the other ones I've done, so I feel like it's getting there.
How was it, MIG welding for the very first time?
Very first time, that's pretty cool. So, a couple of observations. Number one, that felt easier than Flux core welding. Generally speaking, it was smoother. Definitely an adjustment in hearing that sound. It's very crackly the whole time, but with making those little adjustments to the voltage and to the feed rate and everything like that, it felt like it just mostly got better and better. And then we even got to the point where we kind of overdid it a little bit and tuned it back, which is great. Well, thank you, Jeff, for teaching me this and helping me get started with MIG and helping me understand those 5 things that we needed to get started. Now, once you've got those 5 things figured out, you're also going to want to make sure you understand the 5 pros and 5 cons of MIG welding. So Jeff's put together an awesome video, which you can check out right up here and take a look at that as well. I'm Nils with Learn to DIY. Thanks, Jeff, for having us here at the Mech Master Studio here.
Anytime.
Anytime, and we'll see you on the next one.